What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Tech Talk Tuesday. It is actually Tuesday today. Sometimes I do these things on a Thursday and then I have to delay to the next week. But regardless, today we are checking out the Cobrra Nemo 2. This is a kind of a semi-automatic chain oiler. And when I say semi-automatic, you still have to initiate the oiling to happen by twisting the top of the unit. But the idea with this is that when instead of oiling your chain manually at home, you can actually do this on the run while riding. So a pretty cool idea. With these guys, they come with a few different things in the box. I've already pulled a little bit out of it because it's got some zip ties and other stuff, but you're going to get, I think, about 7 or 8 feet of this line. This is like 1/8 of an inch inside diameter line. This is for running from the reservoir down to the location where you decide you want to put it. You also have some bracketing that comes in the box. This is to clamp the unit in, or the line in place, where you end up mounting it either on the swing arm or on the front sprocket. And then you get the oiling device itself with a press fitting for the line. There's a bracket that comes in the box, also some instructions. So with this guy, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to mount it and then you rotate the device clockwise and counterclockwise to oil it. So clockwise to oil, and then counterclockwise is obviously just going to take the top off. So doing this one-handed. Inside the unit, there's just obviously a reservoir. And as you rotate the device, this reservoir actually pushes down, creating a pushing effect through the line to then lubricate the chain. So let's get into the install. We're going to do this kind of as a montage, and then we'll go over it once we finish up. Okay, first part of the install is to, for me anyway, is to go ahead and get the reservoir mounted. So it comes with the supplied bracket, which is right here. You can put that a lot of different places. A lot of guys will put them on their mirror mounts, either right or left side. For me, I've got switches over here for auxiliary lighting. Also, the way the arm of my mirror works didn't really work with the offset of this thing. The bracket they give you is a nice, like, chromed kind of stainless steel bracket, and it's only about 1 inch long, so you have to kind of be diligent with where, not only where you put it, but how you bend the actual unit itself. So what I ended up doing is I went to the bracket for like my bark busters or my protectors, whatever you want to call those things. I just went to one of the Allens. That's going to locate it basically, directly behind the ignition switch for me, which I don't love, but there's not really another piece of real estate without having to go get a clamp to move it over a little bit. So, but for me, it's going to work perfect, nice and level. That's the number one thing with this is you have to get the unit level so it functions correctly. One of the things that I ended up having to do to mount this was I had to remove the bung, or whatever you want to call that, in order to remove the bracket. So the bracket has to be oriented on the inside of the casing, because the casing, when it threads down, will actually thread over top of the bracket. So you can take this out, it's a 10 millimeter, and then the other bolt for the mount arm is an 8 millimeter. So just be careful when you put it back in. Obviously, if you damage the threads or anything, you're gonna have to go to a hardware store that's got those push fittings and get you another one. So check mark for number 1 spot located and done. Okay, so portion number 2 of the install, which I would say is probably going to be the hardest part for anybody to tackle, is the routing of the hose. So this is, if you're not familiar, this is just what's considered like a press fitting. So so the hose won't come out, you know, if you tug on it, but if you press in on the red, then the hose can come out. So it's like a compression fitting. And then to reinsert it, you just press until it won't go any further. So what I did was I came under the bars and then down through the same kind of wiring harness where the factory stuff comes. I also have some lighting, wiring and stuff coming down that way too. So went down, I actually didn't remove the tank. I didn't actually find it necessary to do. The nice thing about that, the hose is that it's nice and rigid. So it's very easy to snake kind of under and through the tank. So I came out right here, which is along the frame rail of the left side of the bike, kind of directly behind the carburetor, snaked behind the harness. And I'm actually gonna do my outlet down here on the front sprocket. I just think it's nicer looking than all the ones that I've seen that run back to the rear sprocket. I don't want to have zip ties and stuff running down my swing arm. It's just more stuff to kind of get tangled up. So I'm going to actually remove the case, probably drill a hole in the case or in the sprocket cover, and then do it there. So let's check that out. Okay guys, so what I ended up doing is I just took my cover plate off and I drilled the appropriate size hole in the cover plate for the sprocket that will kind of tightly press fit the hose in, and it is a very tight fit. It's perfect. Exact. And what that's going to do is I'm going to orient it to where it's just above the chain. So instead of using the bracket that they provide you with, which is this guy, which is made to actually go back on the swing arm, I'm just going to kind of use the cover plate and then that'll drip basically right on top of the chain itself. So pretty easy little trick there. All right, so that's essentially a job done on the install. A couple of cover panels and stuff to put back on, but here's kind of the finished product. I know the lighting's not great, but you can see where the hose comes down. You can follow it up. Comes up here and then up to the reservoir up top. So let's check and see if I can actually see clearance back there. I can't from my angle. I don't know if you can or not. Let's see. Maybe we can get a light on it and we'll see what the clearance looks like. Okay, so after a little bit of trial and tribulation, I don't know if you guys can see it down in there. It's right there. So I got the unit outlet tube in the exact spot I needed finally. What I had to end up doing was I came down through the heatsink of this guy. Yeah, I know it's gonna get a little warm, but with this kind of line, it shouldn't matter. And then just to get the point of the unit to sit at the exact angle I needed, I just ran a zip tie around the bar here and then one to hold it in place. So now it kind of comes through and then goes forward and sits basically right on the sprocket. It's hard to see from this angle. You guys probably can't see it at all, but it is, if you can see it right all the way at the front there. So it is perfect. So that will work. And it's a much cleaner install than coming on the back of the swing arm and having, you know, stuff hang down here. So there you go. So let's fill this thing up and check it out. Okay, so we're gonna start our first fill. I picked up some ADW90, which is what Cobrra recommends from Walmart. It's like $5 for the jug. So the first time you're gonna fill this thing before you take the cap off, where it doesn't actually really matter, but what you're gonna do is you're gonna run it all the way clockwise until the actual silver reservoir is sticking out. You're gonna go ahead and fill it until it gets full, and it's gonna sink down as you're doing it. Not a ton, but a little bit. And then you're gonna turn it, and you can notice that the level is dropping. So you're gonna put a little more. Level dropping. A little more. Keep going. So basically this is filling the entire reservoir instead of just the top section. Because of the way the pressure feed works, you notice you have a big O-ring on the top of this thing. So the idea is once the cap is on top and tight, as you're turning this, it's forcing that pressure down through. That's all it is. And is that considered a siphon? I don't know. Almost full. And the, you know, kind of the empty full indicator is actually this arm that's right, not this arm, but the silver arm that's in back. When that's all the way buried, it's considered empty. Turn my bars. Level this thing out a little bit. I think we're about full. Let's see, I don't know how much more it's gonna take. Basically, you're just gonna turn, yeah, so that's all the way counterclockwise, and we're pretty much full. We'll dab will do you. Okay. So then at that point, you'll take your top, thread him in place, and that's the one thing that's nice about this Cobrra. There's a lot of knockoffs of these things. These are, I got this for $85 on eBay, brand new shipped. There's a lot of knockoffs you can get on Amazon and eBay and Wish and stuff that are $35 shipped. But I mean, buy once, cry once, you know? So this is a high-end unit. Something like this, you don't want leaking. You want all of the machining to be nice and precise and good to go. So from here, they say that like one of these reservoirs, depending on your riding style, should last you up to a year. I think with each quarter turn, so like the only thing that's kind of annoying to me is the Cobrra thing is not this way, but that's just because of how I have it installed. But like, you know, take note that like, okay, well this is full. So 1 quarter turn from there to, you know, here would be one treatment in a sense. So I'm not gonna do it right now just because I don't wanna be wiping gear oil up off the floor. Idea is obviously you're gonna use it while you're riding, so it's gonna continually lube the chain as the chain is rotating. But yeah, that's basically it. So 1 quarter turn of this, not the actual cap, but the unit itself. You can see that the unit itself still rotates freely. That's gonna force the gear oil down through the tube and onto the chain. You know what? To hell with it, let's try it. So reading the directions, it says your first turn should be 2 times 90. So if you remember, arrow started here. So that's 360, right? They made a complete revolution. Let's see if that's getting us some oil. It says right now I'm not getting any oil to the chain, so let's see. Still nothing yet. I don't know, like, if the line needs to be essentially like purged the first time. Oh, we have oil now for sure. So the one thing that you can absolutely tell as you're doing this is you get resistance. So yeah, you probably can't see it, but there was, as I turned and got pressure on it, there was most definitely oil leaking out. So impossible for you guys to see probably, but for me, I can see it working down there. So pretty cool little setup. And there's proof on the floor that indeed we are getting oil to come out. So, all right guys, so to wrap this whole installation up that we just knocked out, Nemo 2 Cobrra lube device for, universal for motorcycles. Did ours on a DRZ400 today. Super easy install. Even with filming, I would say I probably had about 20 to 30 total minutes of install time. Admittedly, I did bend up the bracket before the video, but that took all of about 2 minutes just to get that oriented the way I wanted. Super easy install. A little quirky in the sense that, like, I ran fluid through it to test it and we're still dripping. So, the instructions, which are in like 12 languages, so they're kind of hard to decipher. They say that 1/4 turn of the reservoir will get you 3 minutes of oiling. So that's probably about right. I think to initially get the thing to start oiling, I turned it more times than I needed to. So I pressurized the line a bunch, but as you can see down here, it's actually still dripping on the ground. So minor annoyance with that, but otherwise, like, solid unit, build quality is second to none. Installation's a breeze. Would be a little more difficult if you went back to the back where they kind of recommend in the instructions, or where a lot of other people do it, but I just wanted to keep things simple so I don't have crap falling off the bike or more zip ties. I'm into clean and sanitary. You can't even tell by looking at this, if you don't know what it is, that it's there. People that do them on the swing arm, you've got zip ties and then you've got the tube hanging down. It just doesn't look as clean to me. So overall, fantastic unit. Like I said, buy the original unit. Don't buy a Chinese knockoff. Buy something that you can count on and rely on. And that's it, guys. So throw me that thumbs up. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comments below. I'll be sure to get to those and give you any kind of answers I can.